taking a little bit of different tack today, and really looking at the terrestrial issues of the next generation of space exploration. Obviously, what's happening out there in the private sector doing space exploration is incredible, but there are issues on the ground here to make sure that they are able to operate safely and do the best of their ability to what they do here on the ground. So we have issues that have been presented to us that we want to discuss. We also want to discuss the opportunities here. They're pretty incredible. So today we have with us the ranking member of the Science Committee, Mr. Frank Lucas, and Congressman Babin of Texas, both on the Western Caucus. And proud active members of that. We also have Tim Hughes from SpaceX, who will get introduced shortly. We will go through those folks to give comments, and then we will get to Q&A. Certainly there's a Q&A box down below. You can post your comments there and or send them in to us. And then lastly, portions of this are being recorded and will be broadcast vis-a-vis the Western Caucus Foundation social media. So just be aware of that. But with that, I'm going to turn it over to the ranking member, Congressman Frank Lucas of Oklahoma.
Thank you, Darrell, and it's a pleasure to be here today. One of the great advantages of being a member of the United States Congress is some people like Dr. Babin and I have the privilege of being on the Science, Space, and Technology Committee, one of the really fun remaining committees in the United States House of Representatives, where we have the ability to look forward both on-world and off-world with the variety of responsibilities we have. I think we would all agree that the next great American Western frontier is now the frontier in space. And our nation's space program has historically been associated, I will acknowledge this, with southern states. Orbital mechanics, benefits of launching closer to the equator, the safer ability to launch over the ocean, navigable waterways and rivers to allow for transportation of large space hardware. And if you look at the congressional leadership in the 1950s and 60s, it was a Southern body in the United States House and the United States Senate. But that's changing. And in addition to the robust space presence in Southern California, Texas, Oklahoma, New Mexico, and by the way, I would note, we have a spaceport at Burns Flat, Oklahoma, just for the record, by the way. Space is also becoming a leading sector in other Western states, Washington, Colorado, Arizona, and Nevada. Companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin are taking advantages of the technical workforce and infrastructure that the Pacific Northwest provides. Lockheed, Sierra Nevada, Maxar are leveraging the Rocky Mountain region's connections to the national security space sector. And the space science academic community is building a robust presence in Arizona, for example. Western states are playing a significant role in the 21st century space program, which will feature, of course, a return to the moon, the first human landing on Mars, new robotic missions to other planets in our solar system, textbook altering discoveries that will be coming from the James Webb Space Telescope and other astronomical observatories, and the development of new technologies to both monitor our home planet and modernize air travel. In the past, NASA leveraged America's contractor workforce to enable space exploration. This continues to this day as U.S. industry partners with NASA to service the International Space Station and develop capacities necessary to explore deep space. The last administration understood the importance of space to our economic and national security and implemented many of the policies that Congress recommended. A return to the moon, leadership in low Earth orbit to counter the challenge presented by China, leveraging private sector capacities and streamlining regulations. So far, the new Obama administration has said the right things about space. They're staying the course with the Artemis program to return Americans to the moon, but I'm also concerned about their commitment to decreasing regulations. Administrator Nelson knows space policy in NASA, but we continue to monitor how the FAA, the Department of Commerce's Office of Space Commerce, and Federal Communications Commission treat space through regulations. While space holds great potential, and we've accomplished a lot lately, Commercial space is still in its infancy, and overregulating at this point would cede leadership to foreign nations and competitors, most notably China. Implementing space traffic management regulations before we even know where objects are in space would be like putting the cart before the horse, as we would say in Oklahoma. New human spaceflight regulations without more launches from different systems will undermine the innovation. Additional commercial remote sensing regulations potentially would stifle US companies, but have no impact on foreign companies that have already eclipsed America in this crucial field. That is why we must ensure that the new administration appreciates how regulations impact space policy just as much as the administration's exploration goals and plans. Now, that isn't to say that exploration goals are not important. Human exploration is the most visible aspect of our space program. Many space influences our Western state constituents more than most realize. The Global Positioning System, GPS as we all call it, enables precision agriculture and so much more efficient farming, for example. NASA Aeronautics Works informs how autonomous systems like drones can be used to monitor and optimize crop yields. By the way, did I mention I'm a farmer by trade? NASA's Earth Science operates satellites in space that track the weather, forecast drought conditions, and inform wildfire response. Our nation's commercial remote sensing industry also aids in agricultural efficiency, weather monitoring, and forest management. Space also enables connectivity and offers a solution to the challenge of providing broadband access in rural communities. I may have an extra comment about that or two later. I plan on introducing legislation soon to harness space's potential to meet the challenges faced by our constituents. It will leverage NASA's Earth science expertise, foster private sector innovation, coordinate federal activities, and enable farmers, ranchers, forestry professionals to monitor and manage public and private lands. I look forward to working with all my colleagues in the Western Caucus and in industry to harness the potential space has for terrestrial purposes. Again, thank you all for joining us today and being so interested in this. I now turn to my colleague from Texas, the ranking member of the Space Subcommittee on the Science, Space, and Technology Committee, who has an incredible interest and has been highly involved in all these issues for his entire tenure in Congress, and I believe before that. Dr. Babin, would you have a comment or two to offer us before we proceed with our special guest today?
Absolutely, Chairman. Thank you so very much. And you know what you said about being on an enjoyable committee, I've got to echo that because the Science, Space, and Technology Committee is just, you know, it just piques your curiosity, your quest for knowledge, and it puts our country way out in front of a lot of other nations around the world. But it's great to be with all of you today. I'm very proud to be a member of not only of the SST committee, but also a member of the Western Caucus. And I want to say, I know he's not on, but I want to say thank you to Chairman Newhouse and the Western Caucus membership and you guys that are on the staff as well for organizing and facilitating this conversation on this absolutely critical topic of space innovation and exploration. And also want to say thank you to Tim Hughes and SpaceX and other folks that I hope we'll probably be hearing from as well. But before diving into space exploration, I'd be very remiss if I didn't briefly emphasize the impact of space on many of the priorities of the Western Caucus. And our Chairman Lucas alluded to some of these, but I will dive in as well. Wildfire detection, intelligence, agriculture, wildlife protection. There's an even interesting story in the news recently about how satellite technology is used to intervene on illegal fishing operations, banking, transportation, navigation, the list goes on. And I believe that folks often don't quite understand how prevalent space technology is in their lives. As that technology continues to grow, so will that role. And that's why these opportunities to talk space are so very important for us. Once more, I want to say thank you to the Western Caucus for doing this. As many of you know, I have the honor of serving as the ranking member of the Space and Aeronautics Subcommittee, and proud to serve under our ranking member, Lucas, representing the SST on the Republican side. I'm also very proud to represent Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas, in NASA's largest facility. This plays such a vital role in America's global leadership in space. And among many other important programs, the folks at JSC manage the Orion spacecraft program, the International Space Station, and serve as a vital role, play a vital role in the Commercial Crew program, which our guests today are great partners of. Houston, quite frankly, the entire state of Texas has many space facilities, and SpaceX has at least 2 that I know of, and is a catalyst for innovation and investment in our country's aerospace industry. And I'm very proud to see an increase in federal partnership with commercial space companies who continue to break barriers and usher in the next era in space exploration and discovery. NASA's goal has always been to be a trailblazer, meaning that NASA conquers the challenge and then passes these lessons learned off to private industry, ideally handing off the domain to the commercial world so that NASA can continue pushing outward and upward. This field is ripe with opportunity: propulsion, power, communications, aeronautics, space flight, medicine, remote sensing, exploration, robotics, even tourism, just to name a few of the hot topics these days. I truly believe that we're in the midst of another boom in the development of America's space industry. And I'm sure that many of you recently saw Blue Origin and Virgin Galactic send paying customers to suborbital space. And this, just last Sunday, SpaceX launched a cargo Dragon spacecraft atop a Falcon 9 rocket up to the ISS to replenish their supplies. And if I'm not mistaken, and you can correct me, Tim, if I am, this is the 4th time that specific Falcon 9 was launched, and we're truly living in extraordinary times. We must maintain leadership in space to preserve technological superiority for national security and for diplomatic reasons as well. Far too often today, we see the Chinese Communist Party attempting to gain a stronghold over America, whether that be in trade, espionage, in our university systems, or control over our critical minerals. Whoever leads sets the rules, and I, for one, do not want to see China setting the rules in space or anywhere else for that matter. Finally, when it comes to getting Americans back to the moon, I'm looking for 2024, or as soon as humanly and safely possible. As for Mars, let's go as fast as technology and funding will allow. And in conclusion, I want to see us investing in space, and those dollars that we invest, they don't simply float out into space and burn up on re-entry. That money is spent in our communities like Houston, and often results in technology that changes the way that we live and we work. I'm looking forward to hearing the presentation today by SpaceX. But before I hand the mic over, I encourage us all to continue to look for the stars for solutions to problems here on Earth. I want to thank you again, Western Caucus, for today's important discussion. So with that, I'll yield back.
Thank you, Dr. Babin. And you're exactly right. Before we turn to our special guest today to visit, I think it's worth noting that Tim Hughes is Senior Vice President of Global Business and Government Affairs for SpaceX. And we all know, and we wait with great anticipation for his discussion about their vision for space innovation and terrestrial regulation and environmental challenges that they face and that we all face. I would be remiss if I didn't note that he's been with SpaceX for 17 years. And from the perspective of many of us on this call, a veteran of the Hill. So he understands the body with which he is visiting today. We very much appreciate that, Tim, because it's a complicated world. The legislative world is even more complicated. Everything's complicated. But having someone who has worked in the trenches with us in the past is much appreciated. With that, we turn to you, Tim Hughes, for your observations and comments.
Great. Thank you, Chairman.